Hey, how you doing? Doing all right? I'm doing well, thank you. Not bad at all. Wednesday and then Thursday, the big meeting. Last week, the budget workshop. Yeah.
I think so.
Hi, Judge, how are you?
All right, how are you?
I'm doing well. How's your great grandson?
Great grandson is, we were all very proud. Got born yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep. Did I show you the photo?
You did, that's all.
Yeah.
He's still.
Yeah, that's
Your mom's in the hospital.
Yeah, but it's cesarean.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's gotta be there for a lot of money.
That'd be easier.
Hello there.
Beautiful. It's thank you. Thank you.
Married?
Fun.
Uh-huh.
Is that? Oh, you're handsome. No, but yes.
There you are.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that very much.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello, hey.
Hey, Jack. Running. I know there was no. I see. I mean. Good.
Going right.
Make sure it's on.
Well,
Hi,
get one
everyone.
spent. Get one.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Miss Liendo.
Hi, can you hear me?
We're
Can you
ready?
hear me?
Okay.
Erica, can you hear me?
Is there any way to raise Ms. Liendo's volume? It's kind of hard to hear. Oh, is that what he's doing? Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Better, yes.
Better?
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. We're ready to start now?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. The Program and Policy Committee meeting is come to order. It is 5:31 PM. And I'll do roll call. Jackie Leven Ramos, present. Erica Benavides Garcia,
Present.
Cindy Liendo,
Present by Zoom.
Mercurio Martinez Junior,
Present.
present. Just for the record, we do not have a quorum, but we are conducting this committee meeting. We go to number 3, approval to adopt new board policy in Laredo College's pursuit to become a Texas mother-friendly worksite. Ms. Veronica Cardenas, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Veronica Cardenas, Executive Director of Human Resources. And here with me are my staff to help me out with this policy. So Laredo College is working with the city of Laredo. We're working with Ms. Cristina Duarte and Ms. Alejandra Rodriguez so that we can become a designated Texas mother-friendly worksite. And the first step is to adopt a policy with the state's requirements. So we will be offering a written and communicated employee worksite lactation support policy. And you'll see that it's just one paragraph. I don't know if you want me to read it, but it's very small. It just says, based on the documented health benefits of breastfeeding for mother and baby, all Laredo College employees that have a need to express breast milk during the working hours shall be encouraged to do so and will have access to a designated private location. In addition, all employees and volunteers will be provided information on lactation as well as individual breastfeeding education will be provided for all employees who request it. So that's going to be administered through our office. And the policy and procedure will include information, for example, on the work pattern flexibility and the break time, a private non-bathroom location to express breast milk. And I think, do we have those pictures? Or no? Okay, so we have two locations. One is here at the Kaizen Student Center. It's in room 139.
Okay.
And the other one is in South Campus in Billy Hall. We, of course, have to work alongside the compliance office because that is also available to students. We will also need to make sure that we have access to a nearby clean and safe water source, which those two locations have. So we've, those two lactation rooms that have been identified and will be included in our policy, in our procedures. And so we will be administering the use of these rooms. We will also work with each employee for their individual needs, following the state's requirements. And our goal is to provide support for mothers to return to work with the lactation support. So there's going to be some situations where the mothers don't want to use those two rooms or any of those two rooms, and that's okay. We worked with the city and they've told us or given us an idea of what we can do for them. So we would be able to have, let's say, like a conference room. Of course, it's going to be private, and close to that or right next door to that, if there's a restroom, then it's a good fit. And so all we would have to do is provide like a note or a little poster or even a doorknob. So that way they can post it at the time that they're going to need these breaks. And usually the breaks are going to be like for 30 minutes or so. It could be at 10 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, but we'll work with the new mom. So that's what we're going to be proposing for the board.
Okay,
That's
I'm a little, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. But so is this a staff and
Students.
students, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so.
The one we're proposing today is for employees.
That's what I
employees.
think.
Okay, for.
But we already have the lactation rooms available for the students.
Oh,
Okay,
So one of the things we're working on is the little doorknob hangers. So that if somebody's in there, they put the doorknob hanger on the outside of the door, so people have to take their turns. But it is required now by the state for us to have this available.
Mhm.
And so through the partnership with the city health department, we're able to provide some enhancements to the work just offering a space, we can do a little bit more thanks to the partnership with the city health department.
and so the mom comes back from maternity leave, right?
To work.
Yes.
And to work, and they're afforded this other
Opportunity
Yes.
opportunities, breaks and stuff. Okay,
to
So,
pump, basically.
yeah, okay.
so once the policy is approved, we will, of course, communicate that to all employees. And then we will also, when they come to our office, that they want FMLA or they need FMLA to go have their baby, then we can have them also give them the procedures. So that way they're aware, and we'll work with them. So our office is going to be working one-on-one because everybody has different needs. Not everybody's going to want to go to the two locations that I just mentioned, but we can actually work with them in their own area, wherever they're at. Of course, it has to be
And
private.
Can the staff member say, I don't want to, can I go home and come back?
No, you can't do that.
No, right?
That's not part of the policy.
It's-
That's not
no.
part of the policy. Okay.
Mhm.
So they would be afforded those areas so that they can take advantage of
Continue.
it. And,
Mhm.
With
and,
their jobs.
and then go back to whatever they need to do.
Right.
Like, is there a time?
30 minutes, I think,
Is
is
the
the.
max.
No, but like how long will they be able to take advantage of
1
the
year.
opportunity? 1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
And the rooms that we accommodated were we used some of the furniture and furnishings from the Salinas Trust Home. And so we were able to make them look really nice, both of them. And very comfortable with lighting and lamps, and you know, they're nice. But it is both rooms are available to students and staff. The permissions of the staff has to go through the process that Ms. Cardenas has outlined and the legal team has outlined in the policy.
So the employee would have to have that permission.
Well, they have to first request it through HR and then work with the supervisor to make sure that the person is available. I mean, for some people, it may be at 8:30 in the morning, and for others, it's going to be at 10:30. It just, physically,
Mhm.
when you're nursing, it's different for everyone. And so that's so we have to make those accommodations if we want people to come back to work. And so the thing we did discuss and so one of the things that the city provides is a little like a little cooler bag
Okay.
for them to be able to store their own expressed milk,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so that it doesn't go bad and so what have you. And so they provide these little perks to go along with it. The idea is, how do we get people back to work?
Yeah.
And how do we afford them the accommodations they need during that time?
Okay.
So,
Let me ask, if I may, Madam
Yes,
Chair. The baby is being fed.
no, the
correct?
baby is at home,
The baby is at home,
right?
and
Right, Veronica?
The baby is at home, but there may be situations where they might bring the baby here, but we haven't.
We
Right
haven't
now, it's
gone
just
there.
the expression of,
Yeah, right now, it's, right now, we're not there yet
Right.
because we don't have daycare on campus.
Yeah.
And so that's, at least not here. For those that are at the South Campus, they do have the Camilo Prada, and that's assuming that the baby's been admitted to the Camilo Prada.
Mhm.
But right now, it's only affording them the opportunity to use the lactation rooms.
so.
The baby is not here. The liability on that is
I
something,
understand that, but is the mother then going over to their home
no,
to breastfeed?
no,
They're
no.
expressing their milk here on campus, they're saving it. And then. taking
So that
it
when
home.
they go home, they have that in their little cooler with them. That's why they're called lactation rooms.
Lactation.
Very interesting.
Okay.
I guess it has been a while, but I didn't know how it worked.
So-
So it's very interesting.
so, we did meet with the state and, we met with them, via web, or Zoom, last Friday, and they just wanted to, support us in presenting this, to our board, and, they wanted us to let us know that we actually do have to make an application for each campus in order to be designated as a mother-friendly work site, and it will go on their website.
And is that for all state agencies? Is that is that where it's coming from the state?
It's a state requirement, and so the step is to become a designated work site, officially through the state, so that way we can have that designation.
And you submit the policy that we've adopted in the application, or it's just an application for a work site? I mean, for a work site.
The application has several requirements in there, and one of them is to have a policy that was adopted by the board.
Okay.
And the second thing is to actually have the procedures in place, which we do have those procedures as well. We've been working with the state. We're tweaking them here and there, but ultimately we'll have a final one, which will be distributed to all employees. And then as the need arises, for when they ask for FMLA, that will be given to them as well. We'll probably also include it in our orientation for new hires as well. So that way it's something that we're communicating to everyone.
And the procedures will be in the procedural manual. And the policy will just state that
Correct.
the board has adopted the policy, correct?
Correct. We
Okay.
purposely did not include the procedure in this policy because we're trying to stay away from, and just policy is policy and procedure is separate.
I wanted to make sure that distinction was there, because we had talked about
Yes.
those items where we pulled out the procedures and put them in the manual
Correct.
and left only the policy. So wanted to make sure that the rest of the board members, and then on tomorrow, we will share that with them also as well, because they're gonna ask, why is it just one paragraph? So,
Right.
but it's good to know that way you have that information to provide to the employees.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Cardenas. Anything else? From our members? No?
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Cardenas. Number 4, approve modifications to LC Board Policy DGBA Local, DGBA Regulation, and DGBA Exhibit Personnel Management Relations, Employee Grievances. Ms. Veronica Cardenas?
Yes, thank you. Veronica Cardenas, Executive Director of Human Resources. And we want to present to the board a proposal to modify DGBA local and the levels that we have on there. And here to present these proposed modifications is Mr. Memo Garcia.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Madam President. I believe you've been given copies of what the proposed modifications to DGBA are. You should have those in front of you. They've been blue lined instead of red lined, but they're there. The major changes are in the levels. Currently, we have 4 levels, 4 separate levels. That's being, the request is that it be modified to 3 levels. When you look at the introductory first couple of pages, only the introduction has changed, and really it's the language has been moved around more than anything else as an introduction. There are several portions of the first several pages of DGBA local that remain the same. On page 4 of 11 is where the changes begin. And again, a lot of these changes are just moving around the information that we already have. But since it's in a different location, we've blue lined it for you there. As I mentioned, the major changes are going to be the changes in the levels. Currently, right now, under DGBA local, there are 4 distinct levels. The first being an informal resolution. The second is a committee, a level 1, which is a committee. A level 2 is the president or designee, and level 3 is the board. And what is being proposed begins on page 5 of 11, where you can see it says level 1. And so now what the proposal is that level 1 will begin with the administrator in the chain of responsibility for the employee. So whichever employee files a grievance, the person that will review that complaint and evaluate the information in the complaint will be the vice president in the chain of responsibility of the employee. And then level 2, if it progresses to that point, it would be the president or her designee. And then it would, if they're still not content with the response at that point, the employee may appeal to the board at level 3. All the due process rights remain in place. The complaints are there. The right to appeal are there. None of that has been changed for the most part. And so those are the different levels that are being recommended to be changed. Finally, under the exhibits, which is a separate tab on board policy, because we've done away with the informal resolution process, and because we've done away with the committee, there were several exhibits that needed to be removed. And so we've streamlined the exhibits. The complaint remains, the complaint form remains there. The employee grievance form for level 2 remains there, and employee grievance form for level 3 remains, as well as the employee grievance form for whistleblower violations. So all of those exhibits remain. Small minor changes were done to the exhibits, but by and large, 90 to 95% of those exhibits remain unchanged.
May I?
Of course.
So the difference in the past was there was a committee, and that committee, whenever it was able to get together, come together to hear the grievance, right? The first level is actually the reporting to your supervisor, or filing the grievance with the supervisor, or filing the grievance at HR.
Well, either or, it would eventually get filtered to HR, and then HR would organize an informal resolution, which was the first one that we have in place right now.
Uh-huh.
And so it's not only the supervisor, but it could be a third party that would, in a sense, mediate or review the information, the complaint, and see if it can be resolved informally. If that wasn't able to be done, then they could appeal that decision, and then it would begin at level one, which was the committee that you were just referring to.
So now we're removing the informal?
We're removing the informal as a level.
Uh-huh.
If you notice in the very beginning, the first page at the top, the informal process is still there. We still encourage all the employees to try and resolve everything informally and see if they can be discussed. Just because a complaint has been filed doesn't mean that either the supervisor or administrator or somebody along the chain of responsibility can't try and resolve it by speaking to the parties. But if they're unable or unwilling to do that for whatever reason, then the level one, level two, or level three are at the employee's disposal to further their complaint.
If I may?
Yes, ma'am. you
The
may.
rationale for the discussion that we had around the level one with a committee of 5 people is that getting 5 people to be able to meet all at the same time with the grievant sometimes took 4 months
Mhm.
before we could get,
Won't be easy.
no, and by that time, one of 2 things has happened. Either the grievance has taken on a whole other life on its own, and people are either more upset or more unhappy. And then by the time it gets to level 3, because they usually do, it's been a year.
Yeah.
And then you all will say to us, well, this happened a year ago. Why are we just now hearing about it?
Mhm.
Well, because the process took, first of all, just to get started, it took 4 months. And so what we're trying to do is make it timely, not only for the institution, but for the grievant,
Mhm, mhm.
so that they don't have to wait for 4 months before somebody listens to them.
So we're going from maybe 4 months to
Ideally, 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay.
I mean,
Ideally.
ideally, I'd
Yeah.
like to get it as soon as possible.
Yeah. So if I'm the grievant and I file a grievance, first I'm gonna have an informal
Well,
process.
we're going to encourage that you try to mediate or informally mediate that with either your supervisor
Mhm.
or the person you're grieving against, and we can try to mediate that internally to try to come to some resolution. And if that doesn't work, then you file the level 1, in
Okay.
which case then it would be with either the supervisor, the chair, or the department program director, or whatever it is. And then from that point, if the director or the chair can't get it taken care of, or the dean, then it would come to me or to my designee, in
On a
which
level
case,
what?
on a level 2,
On a
would
level,
come to
okay.
me.
Oh.
And then, so then I could determine whether it would be a vice president or myself. And then after level 2, it would go to you to level 3.
So level 1 is with the vice president in the area, because it says
No,
complaint forms must be filed within 10 days of the date the employee first knew
Chain.
oh, for level 1.
For level
yes.
the
one.
change. But the vice president would be within their area that they,
It could be.
okay. Or
It
could
should be, that level 1 should be within that chain of, with that chain of responsibility.
Okay.
That's
okay,
correct.
Okay, correct, okay.
It should be, because they should be able to try to resolve these things within their own vertical alignment
Right.
before it goes outside of the vertical alignment.
And if they're not happy with that outcome,
It goes
they-
to level 2.
to which is you,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? Or a designated individual that you appoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if they're not happy with that,
Then it goes to the board.
then it comes to the board.
Which would be the third level.
The
third-
final,
yes,
which is the 3rd level now. The issue is the time in between.
Right. mhm. So time. And I'm asking these questions because I would like to make sure that I relay that information tomorrow when I put a summary of what we've discussed today here at the meeting. And I want to say that time is of the essence when it comes to filing a grievance and making sure that it's all worked out
Along, yeah,
in
sorry.
a timely manner, right? Correct.
Yes, and along with that rationale that the president just mentioned, I will note also that the in the current board policy, the employees is given 15 days from the date they were aware that there was a problem to file the complaint. We've shortened that to 10 to move that along, and then the appeal process has also been shortened to 5 days. The idea is to move the process along as quickly as possible, so that there's a resolution and a remedy or conclusion can happen as quickly as possible.
Very good. Any other questions? No? Dr. Ramirez, we're good?
If you're okay, I'm okay.
Yeah. Any questions? No?
No.
We're fine. Ms. Liendo?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Ms. Garcia, Ms. Cardenas. Item number 5, adopt and approve post-tenure, excuse me, comprehensive review guidelines, a comprehensive performance evaluation process of tenured employees. Dr. Marisela Rodriguez Tijerina.
Marisela Rodriguez Tijerina, Provost Vice President of Academic Affairs. As mentioned last month, when we reviewed DCB local, one of the things we added was that according to Senate Bill 18, which impacted the Texas Education Code Section 51.942, we have to include a comprehensive performance evaluation for all tenured employees. And last month, I provided a draft to the policy committee, and now we are proposing our final draft this month. And pretty much what the comprehensive, or at least what the code specifies, is that all tenured employees have to go through this process. Nobody can forfeit the process. There has to be professional development, and if at any point faculty or employees get an unsatisfactory, that we provide a professional development plan with a short-term plan that involves benchmarks and a good plan that will lead them to get that satisfactory rating. So in summary, obviously the purpose of this is to comply with Texas Education Code Section 51.942, as you can see on page 1. Basically, the basis of it is to have 2 different committees. One committee is going to be a peer committee. That's what the law stipulates, that peer committee members view that. And so what tenured employees are going to do is submit a digital portfolio, and the 2 committees, one made up of tenured employees, will review that digital portfolio and go through the checklist to ensure that they did comply with what's expected. If you look on page, at the bottom of page 3, on to page 4, it does have the portfolio checklist. So we're going to expect them to turn in a statement, a curriculum vitae, narratives with supporting documentation. There's 3 major focuses: one on teaching excellence, second is service to the community, to the college, and to the department. So it's all 3. And lastly, the professional development. So notice how we have different bullet points under each of them, because this is pretty much when we talk about tenured employees, it could be a faculty member, it could be a counselor, it could be a librarian, it could be an administrator. So we tried, and this draft was worked with faculty, with the librarians, with the counselors, with admin. So we really tried, or we did, at least I feel that we provided a very fair process to where everybody provided input as far as what their role on campus and what type of evidence they can partake in to ensure that they comply with this procedure. So on top of the peer committee, there's going to be another committee of their chair, their dean, and their VP. And the reason we have two is because sometimes there's confidential information that maybe the peer committee cannot.
Not privy to.
Exactly. So pretty much the HR files, right? And going back to page 2, you can see the timeline as far, it was a random sample. We did not choose, but pretty much what we did is we divided all the employees and then categorized them by cohorts, and then the cohorts went into a random sample. And the first cohort that's going to go in is anybody that received tenured in 2018 and within the years of 2015 to 2017. So for the first cohort, typically what we want to inform the employees is give them a 6 months notice that they're up for a post-tenure review. Typically, by March, we're proposing that they get a letter that they're going to go up for post-tenure review. Because we're already past March, we are proposing, if you look on page 9, there's a timetable for the first group that is different from the others. Only to give the faculty or those tenured employees ample time, like literally 6 months, because if this gets approved, then they'll get a letter in July and they won't turn in their portfolio until January. If you notice the other cohorts, they're going to get their letter in March and submit the digital portfolio by fall.
And this one, for this year is gonna be January, right?
Correct. January 2025.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the question, how many years does the employee have before that employee is tenured?
So the board, as you know, in February, we bring you all the candidates that are going up for tenure, and that's going to continue
But after
existing
how many years?
after 5 years.
After 5 years?
Uh-huh.
That's
Now,
my question.
if there's a problem, then we work with a faculty member, or they just don't get.
Yeah,
tenure.
because tenure is not automatic.
Right,
No,
They have to meet the criteria to then be considered for tenure. But they have 5 years within which to meet the criteria.
and what
and
we're
then
talking,
that criteria would be reviewed by a committee?
The criteria, this is the process she's explaining right now.
Process is right here.
Yes.
well, that process is a different process because we're bringing in the candidates that submitted a different portfolio with a different checklist. Basically, in the 5 years, they have complied with whatever that checklist is, and then in February, we bring the candidates to you all to approve the tenure. This is
Post.
after.
Post-tenure review.
That are already
Post-tenure
tenured.
These are people that are already tenured and then will have to come back 6 years later for a post-tenure review. Because you can't, I mean, people keep tenure for forever, but if the quality of their teaching or the quality of their service is not up to par, then what's the recourse that the college has? So within 6 years after their tenure awarding, they have to go up for post-tenure review. This is a very common practice in all academic settings. And quite frankly, we're at a point where we really need to do that. Now, part of the initiation was Senate Bill 18, which you have a copy of, that was passed in the last legislative session, requiring us to do something about tenure. And so this is their way of governing themselves, or the state government is going to do it for them.
Thank
And on the post tenure, if you notice, the committees then bring the recommendations to the provost, myself, and then I'll send the recommendations to Dr. Minita, and the president makes the final approval of the post tenure. post tenure doesn't have to go to the board. The only thing the board has to do is approve these guidelines. So if tomorrow or for the next year, we want to change some of the guideline procedures, then I need to bring it back to you all to change that. But that's different. Post tenure is different from tenure.
Right.
Tenure, we still have to bring it to the board for your approval, which will be in February.
Now, let me ask you another question. Apparently, are we dealing with tenured employees outside of the faculty?
Right.
So in other words, just let's say a regular labor employee can be tenured?
No,
No.
No.
So,
No?
so tenure
contract.
was given to faculty, teaching faculty, counselors, librarians, and some of us who used to be teaching faculty, that like myself, that went into admin, we kept our tenure. So like myself, I have to go through this post-tenure review. And there is to be disclaimers here that at any point, when a committee member is going up for a post-tenure, well, they have to recuse themselves from the process. So obviously, with
Right.
my portfolio, I can't judge my portfolio.
Right.
and tenure is not, a tenure is an academic distinction. Because it's based on research, it's based on service, it's based on teaching, it's not an administrative or a staff member distinction. So tenure is an academic distinction, is what it is. It's not a staff member distinction.
And because there was changes to the definitions, this is why DCB local, last month, we removed the librarians and the counselors from the faculty ranks, if you recall, from
Yes.
the committee.
But they're still on tenured.
Right.
You still
Yeah.
have some.
If they were granted tenure, they have to go through this process, and the ones that were hired under a tenure track, they were kept under a tenure track. But we stated that as of September 1st, 2024, well, actually, February of 2023, we stopped offering tenure
Right.
positions.
It's impossible for a counselor or a librarian to do the research, the service, the teaching, because they're not teaching.
Mhm.
We have people that are tenured that haven't taught a class in 20 years. So how are they tenured? They're not getting evaluated like faculty. There are 4 evaluation instruments that faculty get evaluated with. Staff don't get evaluated that way. So how is that distinction fair?
And so does the employee in your case, and I refer back to your situation, you can opt to get off of tenure?
Sure.
Like you can choose, you know what, I'm not gonna do this. I want to keep my administrative position, which you do have, right? The vice presidency. Can you choose, any employee can choose to step out of the tenure?
Sure.
So according to the law, and Rusty, I know we talked about it last week, you can't, I can't do that. I have to go through the process. Now, if I so happen to turn in a non-satisfactory portfolio, then I become unsatisfactory. But nobody can forfeit the process, because the law is very clear that when you're tenured, you have to go through a comprehensive post-tenure review.
And so for the future, an individual who is tenured and gets an administrative position, would
They keep it.
they keep it? Okay.
And then they have to go through post-tenure reviews. I mean, wherever they are, they may be in year 3. When they get to year 6, they're going to have to go through post-tenure review. And I will tell you that in my previous role, I was administrator, but I was also teaching. And if I had wanted to retain tenure, I would have been on tenure track, and I would have had to have gone through the post-tenure review process as well, even though I was on administrative, because at most institutions, even on academics on administrative tracks, will teach at least 1 course a year so that they can retain their faculty status.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So let me see if I'm right, okay? As of tomorrow, when we will formally approve all of this, only faculty will be will be eligible for tenure, correct?
If we hire them on a tenure track position, we're not hiring people on tenure track positions anymore.
I see. All right. Now, prior to this formal approval, do we have employees that have never been part of faculty that have been tenured?
Yes,
All right. So basically, those previous employees will continue to be under tenure guidelines, so to
yes, sir.
speak.
They will retain their tenure status,
Retain their tenure status.
but at some
Okay,
point, they're gonna go through post-tenure review,
I understand. So basically.
depending on where they fall on the category. Like, I mean, they're gonna,
Years.
however they get selected, wherever they fall, it may be 6 years from now, it may be 4 years from now, it may be 3 years from now, but sooner or later, all of those people who are tenured are gonna have to go through post-tenure review process.
I understand.
Mhm.
Which
And they-
is-
But
which is
if you already have tenure, we can't take it away from you
No.
just willy-nilly.
Just like
No, we can't.
So you really can't just give it up either. is
Nope.
what Marisela is saying. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You,
Dr.
you
Marisela.
can't, you can't just, I mean, you can forfeit it by saying, you know what, I don't want to go through this process.
Okay.
If I'm not faculty, what's the benefit of tenure?
Mhm.
There isn't.
And
You still
also
get all
it's-
your due processes, I mean, what's the benefit of tenure?
And also, it's not attached to any pay increase or anything like that.
No,
It
ma'am.
was just tenure was a way of,
It's a faculty elite status is what it is.
but with all the changes that are happening to, let's say the legislature would meet next year, for example, and they would have a revamping of this. I mean, you go back to the drawing board. I am most impressed in the collaborative effort that has taken place with the undue pressure and the stress that was brought about, by other sources. But it gives us an opportunity to see that this is what's out there. We need to do something. I refer back to the first item that we had on the agenda. We can either cross our hands and just say, let them do whatever they want to do. But in this case, we have sat down, we have reviewed it, and collaboratively, we've worked on something that's going to benefit all concerned, which
Right. And really, the faculty and the faculty administrators took it upon themselves to be proactive and say, okay,
Very
we're
nice.
going to police ourselves. We're going to figure this out for ourselves. How do we do it fairly? How do we do it without any kind of remorse or recourse, right? We don't have a choice. We have to do something or somebody else is going to make this decision for us. And it isn't even going to be at the local level.
Right.
So we might as well take it into our own hands and figure it out. And we report it that we've already done this and this is our process.
I was also, an observation that I wanted to share with you was in spring of 2029, you will focus on the faculty exempt members tenured in 2022 and those between 1970 and 2003. So I see the pattern. The pattern is going back maybe 5 years or 6 years, right?
Mhm.
That's how we started?
6 years. So
6 years. Mhm,
obviously from 2017 and before,
mhm.
they're not 6 years anymore. It's past. So
Right.
those were the pool of employees that we got and we divided them into cohorts and we put them in a random sample because of course you had, well, if you go with a 1970, how is that fair? And so we got into this, in the committee. So I said, okay, it's going to be a random sample. Here are the different cohorts and whoever comes out, from before 2017 first, that's who's going first in 2025. And it so happened to be anybody that was in 2015 to 2017. And the reason the numbers are kind of weird is because we try to put the cohorts of más o menos 20 faculty per cohort
Oh.
Okay,
because
okay.
that's why you see some years, 2 years, and then others 1 year. Well, it happened like in 2013, 2014. There was about 16 employees that got tenured that year. And so we're also trying to not overwhelm the peer committee by getting more than
Sure.
20 samples, to review. So
That's a
that,
lot. It's a
yeah,
lot.
that's
That's
why,
good.
yeah.
And by the time you get to spring of 2029, maybe the numbers will be less
Right,
if anyone retired or,
correct.
Right.
And by
still-
then that everybody will be on a normal 6-year cycle.
Mhm,
right.
Yes. So by 2030, you will start with a regular cycle, right?
Mhm.
Very good.
Very good, very impressionable. I know I know this is one of the policies that we had talked about. And I wasn't sure, to be honest, whether it was gonna be finished in a month. But I am very most impressed, and I'm sure my colleagues are too as well. Because we focused on completing it, and I know I didn't have anything to do with it, but we, meaning you all as a team. And so I'm
They kudos to
Yeah.
Dr. Tijerina and her team and the committee because they've been meeting for almost 10 months, right?
Well, we've been meeting, for a year and a half. In that year, we revamped all the instruments for the faculty. And then when I came back from FMLA, I said we would work on this comprehensive post tenure. So I do want to thank the committee because a lot of them are not on contract right now, but they made the commitment. I also, when we were done with the draft last month, I sent it out to faculty, to the counselors, Dr. Fred sent it out to the counselors, I sent it out to the librarians, and we gave them a week of commentary period to give us feedback on the draft. So, I mean, I think anybody that was affected by it got a
You gave
fair
everybody
shot.
ownership.
Exactly,
Very good.
Mhm.
right.
very.
And then brought back the feedback to the committee. And then after the committee, then that's when legal reviewed it, added a few more tweaks to it, and then I forwarded it back to the committee saying, this is what's going to be proposed to the policy committee.
Very
So,
good.
I think it was a fair process.
Thank you, and thank you for that explanation, because I know I would like to summarize the majority of the policy for tomorrow for those other board members that are not part of the program and policy committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6, annual review and adoption of LC Board Policy CAK, local appropriations and revenue sources, investments, Mr. Cesar Vela, Valley View Investments as well. I believe we have a representative too, Mr. Long,
Yes.
right?
Yes, Madam.
For the
Chair.
record, Richard Long is joining us also on the meeting from the investment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Program and Policy Committee, Dr. Ramirez. For the record, Cesar Vela, VP of Finance and Administration. This afternoon, as you mentioned, Ms. Ramos, we are presenting changes to the investment policy. And this is to comply with the Public Funds Investment Act, or the Texas, also known as Texas Government Code, Chapter 2256. Included in your packets, you received a copy of the recommended changes. And you'll see that we do have quite a few changes that are being recommended for the 2024 fiscal year. The changes are not any that we consider to be radical changes. They're mostly changes to align our policy to the public funds better align the policy with the Public Funds Investment Act. And also to provide clarification on some of the guidelines and items that are on the policy. The changes have been reviewed by legal and administration, and we both agreed that they were acceptable. This year, we did hire the firm of Valley View Consulting to provide investment advice to the college. One of those services is to actually review our investment policy and make recommendations. So this year, again, we sent over the policy over for review. They have returned it with the recommended changes. As you mentioned, we do have Mr. Richard Long from Valley View Consulting joining us via Zoom. And he will be providing the committee with a summary of the changes, the recommended changes. But before I pass the presentation to Mr. Long, I just want to point out one item. On the policy, on your document that you received, we are going to make a slight change to section 4.4 on the authorized dealers. And I'll provide that revision tomorrow at the board meeting. And that section has to deal with the authorized broker dealer list. We had the wrong name for one of the broker dealers, so we'll make that correction and include it with the revised packet. So I'll go ahead and now and pass it on to Mr. Long so that he can provide the committee with a summary of the changes that are being recommended on the policy.
Before we do, sir,
Yes.
Dr. Ramirez, would this particular agenda item be on consent agenda, or is it
We-
gonna be separated?
We also brought this to the Finance and Audit Committee last night. They looked it over and they had no questions, so it could be on consent agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, only because Mr. Vela, did you present that yesterday to the committee, the section 4.4?
Yes,
Yes,
that
we-
clarification was done also at the
Okay.
Finance and Audit.
We did present the whole thing yesterday and Mr. Long presented yesterday as well. So this is a redo for Mr. Martinez because he was here yesterday as well.
Okay.
And so, but yes, Mr. Long gave a quick overview of the key changes. And so I don't know, if you want Mr. Long to give that explanation.
Definitely.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Long?
Great. Well, thank you again. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. As Mr. Vela mentioned, mostly the idea was to clarify the current policy and maybe augment in a few places and actually in a couple places, take a little bit out, mostly from a risk management standpoint. If you're looking through the policy and you go down to section 2.4 under standard of care, there was some additional language inserted that from the Public Funds Investment Act that just provides a little bit more clarification on what the investment officers are responsible for. Under strategies, there was a little bit of a movement of some minor words just to make sure that each strategy was very specific to the types of funds. And so as investments are made, that the investments are made appropriately for your different fund types. The biggest changes happened probably under section 4, authorized investments, and you'll see we're recommending quite a few be deleted. The act allows the college to take a substantially more risk than I think the college itself would want to assume, and that we also agree with. And so some things that would involve credit risk, such as commercial paper, bankers acceptances, portfolio swaps, those sort of things, we're recommending that you just go ahead and take out of the policy since you're not going to use them anyway based on your risk criteria. As mentioned in the broker dealer section, augmented that a little bit, and specifically are going to list a few recommended broker dealers for the college to use as we are developing the strategy. There will be times where the college will be able to do bank CDs, which you wouldn't need to have this authorized broker dealer list for. But in some cases, we will need to buy Treasury securities or one of the federal agencies, and it will be important to have a good broker dealer list. The training section was expanded to provide a little bit more clarity as per the act. The reporting section pretty much was just added where we're specifically responding to the Open Records Act and suggesting that your performance standard be weighted average yield to maturity. Kind of a nuanced little change in the Open Records Act from a while back, but we want to make sure it's very clear in your policy. The certification language in the Act, Public Funds Investment Act, that is, was changed a few years ago. And again, we just wanted to clarify your language to be more in compliance with the current Act. We added a little section about existing investments where, again, straight out of the Act, if you own something and either the Act changes or your policy changes, you're not required to liquidate it. You could choose to, but you're not required to. And most folks would let it just run out its normal course. We did add a section on competitive environment, and the idea is to make sure that the colleges are getting good return for its decisions, and that all the providers know that other people are going to be competing against them. And so therefore it does help the broker dealers and the banks sharpen their pencils a little bit. And then internal controls. I know the college has a good set of internal controls, but the Public Funds Investment asked you to specifically address the concept of internal controls. So we just provided some basic guidelines related to internal controls within the investment policy. And as promised, sort of a quick overview, we can answer any specific questions you might have.
Anybody?
No.
I don't either.
Ms. Lindo?
We're good. I think it was really quick. I kept up, we kept up. Yes, we tried. So, and then the resolution of the board regarding the review of the investment policy, that's what we're gonna be.
Yes, so part of the
Requirement.
process is to document that the board reviewed the policy. All we're asking is that the board adopt the resolution, have the board president and board secretary sign. And this is documentation that is kept on our files to show proof that we presented the policy for review. And again, this is to be done annually, and we've been doing it annually to make sure that when we get those biannual audits, we show compliance on this particular item.
And for SACs, we have to show that we've done this for at a minimum, the last 3 years of exhibits. So we'll show that as part of our, part of our 5th year assessment as well. So just so that we keep that forefront is that this is also a SACs requirement.
Okay. Anything else,
No,
No.
that's all.
members? No? Okay.
No.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Thank you.
Welcome in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we come to number 7, adjournment of our Program and Policy Committee meeting. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Second,
Second.
you have a second? Thank you. Mr. Martinez made a motion and Ms. Garcia seconded. We are adjourned. It is 6:25. Thank you for coming and thank you for being a part of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, those are good. The other one was long. But it's okay. Tomorrow will be long. It's okay. Huh. You coming tomorrow? It's okay.
You know what I mean?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vela.
Thank you, thank you. Uh-huh, yeah.
Go to lunch. Back at 3. I'll just tell Victor that got me here. I'll go get my car, but I will, even if I'm, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
will.
You just
God
be
willing,
careful.
everything will,
Yeah,
yes,
you just be
exactly. God willing, everything. Thank you, very good. Thank you.
Fast. Very nice.